Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Rainam namaskritya naram chaiva namotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat utama shloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. Hare Krsna. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, entitled Purusha Sukta Confirmed. We're on texts 40 and 41. Text 40 and 41, Chapter 6, Canto 2, Srimad Bhagavatam. Today's June 11th, 2020. Vishudham. There we go. I'm unmuting Bhakti Yoga Retreat there. There we go. That's good. Okay. Vishudham.
Vishudham.
Evalam.
Evalam.
Jnanam.
Jnanam.
Pratyak.
Pratyak.
Samyak.
Samyak.
Avastitam.
Avastitam.
Satyam.
Satyam.
Purnam.
Purnam.
Anadi.
Anadi.
Antam.
Antam.
Nirgunam.
Nirgunam.
Nityam.
Nityam.
Advayam.
Advayam.
Vishe.
Vishe.
Vidanti.
Vidanti.
Munaya.
Munaya.
Prashanta.
Prasanta.
Atma.
Atma.
Indriya.
Indriya.
Ashaya.
Ashaya.
Yada.
Yada.
Tat.
Tat.
Eva.
Eva.
Asat.
Asat.
Tarkai.
Tarkai.
Kira dieta.
Dhira dieta.
Viplutam.
Viplutam.
Vishudam kevalam jnanam.
Vishudam kevalam jnanam.
Pratyaksam yagavastitam.
Pratyaksam yagavastitam.
Satyam purnamanaadyantam.
Satyam purnamanaadyantam.
Nirgunam nityam advayam.
Nirgunam nityam advayam.
Ishe vidanti munaya.
Ishe vidanti munaya.
Prashantat mendriyashaya.
Prashantat mendriyashaya.
Yadatad eva satkarkais.
Yadata deva sattarkais.
Irodiyeta viplutam.
Irodhiyeta viplutam.
Vishudam kevalam jnanam.
Vishudham kevalam jnanam.
Atyaksam yagavastitam.
Ataksam yagavastitam.
Satyam purnamanaadyantam.
Satyam purnamanaadyantam.
Nirgunam nityam advayam.
Nirgunam nityamadvayam.
Ishe vidanti munaya.
Ishe vidanti munaya.
Prashantat mendriyashaya.
Prashantat mendriyashaya.
Yadatad eva sattarkais.
Yadata deva sattarkais.
Irodiyeta viplutam.
Irodhiyeta viplutam.
Vishudam
Kevalam jnanam.
Vishudam kevalam jnanam.
Pratyaksam yagavastitam.
Pratyaksam yagavastitam.
Satyam Purnam Anadyantam
Satyam Purnam Anadyantam
Nirgunam Nityamadvayam
Nirgunam Nityam
Vishavedanti Munaya
Devanti Mudaya
Asantatmendriyashaya
Vasantatmendriyashaya
Adata Deva Satarkais
Yadatareva Satkarkais
Sirodhiyeta Viplutam
Nirodhyeta Viplutam
Vishudam kevalam jnanam
Vishudam Kevalam Jnanam
pratyaksam yagavastitam
Adyaksam Yagavastitam
satyam purnamanadyamtam
Satyam Purnamanadyam
nirgunam nityamadvayam
Nirgunam Nityamadvayam
Vishevedanti munaya
Ishe Vidanti Munaya
Dashantatmendriyashaya
Vasantatmendriyashaya
Adatate vasatarkais
Yadatareva Sattarkais
Nirodhiyeta viplutam
Nirodhyeta Viplutam
Vishudam kevalam jnanam
Vishudam Kevalam Jnanam
pratyaksam yagavastitam
Pratyaksam Yagavastitam
satyam purnam adanyantam
Satyam Purnamanadyam
nirgudam nityanam advaitam
Nirgunam Nityamadvayam
Vishevidanti anyaha
Vishevidanti Munaya
prasantat mendriyasaya
Vasantatmendriyashaya
yadatad eva sattarkas
Yadatareva Sattarkais
virodhiyeta viplutam
Tirodhyeta Viplutam Vishudham
Vishudam
without any material tinge
without any
Any
material
material tinge
Kevalam
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 pure and perfect
Pure and perfect
Jnanam
Jnanam
knowledge
Knowledge
Pratyak
Pratyak
all pervading
All pervading
Samyak
samyak
in fullness
In fullness
Avastitam
Avastitam
situated
Situated
Satyam
Satyam
truth
Truth
Purnam
Purnam
absolute
Absolute
Anadi
Anadi
without any beginning
Without any beginning
Antam
Antam
and so also without any end
And so also without any end
Nirgunam
Nirgunam
devoid of material modes
Devoid of material modes
Nityam
Nityam
eternal
Eternal
Advayam
Advayam
without any rival
Without any rival
Rishe
Vishe
O Narada O great sage
O Narada O great sage
Vedanti
Vedanti
they can only understand
They can only understand
Munaya
Munaya
the great thinkers
The great thinkers
Prashanta
Prashanta
pacified
Pacified
Atma
Atma
self
self
Indriya
Indriya
senses
Senses
Ashaya
Ashaya
sheltered
Sheltered
Yada
Yada
while
While
Tat
At
that
That
Eva
Eva
certainly
Certainly
Asat
Asat
untenable
Untenable
Tarkai
Tarkai
arguments
Arguments
Kira dieta
Ida Dieta
disappears
Disappears
Viplutam
Viplutam
distorted
Distorted
Translation, this is text 41. This is text 40 and 41 of chapter 6, canto 2, Srimad Bhagavatam. Translation, the personality of Godhead is pure, being free from all contaminations of material tinges. He is the absolute truth and the embodiment of full and perfect knowledge. He is all-pervading, without beginning or end, and without rival. O Narada, O great sage, the great thinkers can know him when completely freed from all material hankerings and when sheltered under undisturbed conditions of the senses. Otherwise, by untenable arguments, all is distorted and the Lord disappears from our sight. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Here is an estimation of the Lord apart from his transcendental activities in the temporary material creations. Mayavad philosophy tries to designate the Lord as contaminated by a material body when he accepts forms of incarnation. This sort of interpolation is completely denied herein by the explanation that the Lord's position is pure and unalloyed in all circumstances. According to Mayavad philosophy, the spirit soul, when covered by nescience, is designated as jiva, but when freed from such ignorance or nescience, emerges in the impersonal existence of the absolute truth. But here it is said that the Lord is eternally the symbol of full and perfect knowledge. This is his specialty, perpetual freedom from all material contaminations. This distinguishes the Lord from the individual common living entities who have the aptitude for being subordinated by nescience and thus becoming materially designated. In the Vedas, it is said that the Lord is Vijnanam Anandam, full of bliss and knowledge. The conditioned souls are never to be compared to him because such individual souls have the tendency to become contaminated. Although after liberation, the living entity can become one with the same quality of existence as the Lord, his very tendency to become contaminated, which the Lord never has, makes the individual living entity different from the Lord. In the Vedas, it is said, Shuddham apapa vidam. The individual Atma becomes polluted by sin, but the Lord is never contaminated by sins. The Lord is compared to the powerful sun. The sun is never contaminated by anything infectious because it is so powerful. On the contrary, infected things are sterilized by the rays of the sun. Similarly, the Lord is never contaminated by sins. On the contrary, the sinful living entities become sterilized by contact with the Lord. This means that the Lord is also all-pervading like the sun, and as such, the word pratyak is used in this verse. Nothing is excluded from the existence of the Lord's potential expansions. The Lord is within everything, and he is all-covering also without being disturbed by the activities of the individual souls. He is therefore infinite, and the living entities are infinitesimal. In the Vedas, it is said that only the Lord alone exists, and all others' existences depend on him. He is the generating reservoir for everyone's existential capacity. He is the supreme truth of all other categorical truths. He is the source of everyone's opulence, and therefore no one can equal him in opulence. Being full of all opulences, namely wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, certainly he is the supreme person. And because he is a person, he has many personal qualities, although he is transcendental to the material modes. We have already discussed the statement, Itam Bhuta Guno Hari, from Bhagavatam 1.7.10. His transcendental qualities are so attractive that even the liberated souls, Atmaramas, are also attracted by them. Although possessed of all personal qualities, he is nevertheless omnipotent. Therefore, personally, he has nothing to do, for everything is being carried out by his omnipotent energies. This is confirmed by the Vedic mantras, Parasya Shaktir Vividaya Shruyate Swabhaviki Ganapala Kriyacha. This suggests his specific spiritual form, which can never be experienced by the material senses. He can be seen only when the senses are purified by devotional service. Yam evaisha vrinute tena labhya. As such, there are basic differences between the Lord and the living entities in so many respects. No one can be compared to the Lord, as the Vedas declare. Ekam evad vitiyam brahma dvaitad vai bayam bhavati. The Lord has no competitor, and he has nothing to fear from any other being, nor can anyone be equal to him. Although he is the root of all other beings, there are basic differences between him and other beings. Otherwise, there would have been no necessity for the statement in the previous verse that no one can know him 100% as he is. Nayam vidanti tat vena. That no one can fully understand him is explained also in this verse, but the qualification for understanding to some degree is mentioned here. Only the prashantas, or the unalloyed devotees of the Lord, can know him to a greater extent. The reason is that the devotees have no demands in their lives but to be obedient servants of the Lord, while all others, namely the empiric philosophers, the mystics, and the fruitive workers, all basically have some demand, and as such they cannot be pacified. The fruitive worker wants reward for his work, the mystic wants some perfection of life, and the empiric philosopher wants to merge in the existence of the Lord. Somehow or other, as long as there is a demand for sense satisfaction, there is no chance for pacification. On the contrary, by unnecessary dry speculative arguments, the whole matter becomes distorted, and thus the Lord moves still further away from our understanding. The dry speculators, however, because of their following the principles of austerity and penance, can have knowledge of the impersonal features of the Lord to some extent, but there is no chance of their understanding his ultimate form as Govinda, because only the Amalatmanas, or the completely sinless persons, can accept pure devotional service to the Lord, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 28. Isham tvantagatam papam jananam punyakarminam te dvandva moha nirmukta vajantimam drita vrataha. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gavani Pacharine Nirvishesha Srinivani Pastatiti Satari Vishudam Kevalam Gyanam Pratyak Samyagavastitam Satyam Purnam Anadyantam Nirgunam Nityam Advayam Vishe Vidanti Munaya Prasantat Mendriyashaya Yada Tad Eva Satarkais Tivodiyeta Viplutam. The personality of Godhead is pure, being free from all contaminations of material tinges. He is the absolute truth and the embodiment of full and perfect knowledge. He is all-pervading, without beginning or end, and without rival. O Narada, O great sage, the great thinkers can know him when completely freed from all material hankerings and when sheltered under undisturbed conditions of the senses. Otherwise, by untenable arguments, all is distorted and the Lord disappears from our sight. Hare Krishna. Last Friday we discussed how all the Vedas, the Bhagavatam, the Vedas, all the knowledge given can be understood in three categories: Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Relationship, activities in that relationship, and the ultimate fruit of that relationship. Certainly another categorization that we get right from the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada's introduction of Bhagavad Gita, is 5 topics. Ishvara, or the Lord, Krishna; Jiva, that's us, the spirit souls; Prakriti, material energy; Kala, time; and Karma, activity. So in reading this verse and purport, I'm thinking in terms of that categorization. And okay, basically we can think in terms of material energy, Prakriti, Jiva, spirit soul, and Ishvara, the supreme spirit soul, Paramatma, or Bhagavan, the source of Paramatma. And so Right. So it's important to understand the distinctions, and often we're making the distinctions between the spirit, soul, and matter. Okay. Antavanti me dehe nitishukta shririna anastino prameyasya tasma yudyasa bharata. Krishna says to Arjuna, only the material body of the immeasurable, indestructible, eternal spirit soul will die, is subject to destruction. So Nijayate Mriyate Vakadachin, for the soul there's never birth nor death. So it's a distinction between spirit, soul, and matter. And so we're not the body. And so this is, gets into who am I? And so this gets into the ontological truth, the ontological reality of who we are. And okay, and the last two evening programs we're reading Prabhupada's comments on a Western philosopher Leibniz, who hypothesized about these monads, which is the essence of all reality, and it bears some resemblance to the Jiva soul, though it's a bit muddled because he doesn't have the parampara understanding. Okay, and then there's the very important distinction between the Jiva, the spirit soul, and the Ishvara, the supreme soul, Jiva and Ishvara. Now, especially in, let's call it, different traditions related to Vedic philosophy, and they don't make a distinction between Jiva and Ishvara. And that's the idea, is like, well, if you just meditate enough, you'll realize that you are Ishvara, you are God. Actually, in traditional Western philosophy, I don't know that sort of conception is prominent. Of course, in modern and postmodern times, with like hippie philosophy, New Age philosophy, and so much of that comes from India. Starting in the 50s and 60s, when beatniks, they started going to India, and they would be exposed to the Advaitavad philosophies. Advaitavad means radical non-dualism, that the ultimate reality, the ultimate absolute truth is radical, undifferentiated oneness. And okay, so in the Indian traditions, so we can see that, okay, that like if we look at our Vaishnav scholars over the ages, of course, through our current link to the Parampara Srila Prabhupada, but the Vaishnav scholars have voluminous literature, voluminous commentaries, exposing the incompleteness or downright faults and wrongness of this Advaitavad as the absolute understanding. Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarka, the six Goswamis, Jiva Goswamis, just very powerful literatures establishing the difference between the Jiva and the Ishvara. And of course, we get that in full. We get the full representation of these Vaishnavacharyas through Srila Prabhupada in purports like this. And so there's like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's some like 12, 14-page purports where he's amply quoting Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya. Okay, so there's extensive philosophy to understand the defects of this Advaitavad, means radical non-dualism. Basically, though, I'll summarize it in 30 seconds. Okay, so basically, the idea that we are separate individual jivas, this is just illusion. They'll give the example. It's called Parichedavad. And Prabhupada goes into this Prabhupada goes into this even early in Bhagavad Gita, even in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita in his purports, because Krishna goes into it. Parichedava. The idea is like, just like if you have different pots, and the air within the pot, it's really always the same as the air outside the pot. And once the pot breaks, and the pot represents our illusion, once the pot breaks, then the air within the pot merges with the air outside the pot. So once our illusion is dispelled, we realize our godhood, our Ishvara nature. So, okay, so I've already taken more than 30 seconds, but I can summarize it. I can summarize it. So basically, go like, okay, so somehow the Brahman, that oneness, has fallen into illusion. So one thing is that would mean that the power of illusion is greater than the power of Brahman. And then you have some superior, then like illusion's greater than God. Then illusion becomes the absolute because it's more powerful. But even more fundamental than that, even more fundamental, apart from comparative power, even more fundamental than that, there's like, from an Advaitavad point of view, you can't have Maya. But they're saying, well, there's Maya. But once we come out of Maya, we realize, oh, you can't have Maya because the idea is it's all one. And once you have Maya, you have two, because then you have Brahman and you have Maya. You have the force, you have like, okay, you have the oneness, the white light of spirit, and then you have Maya. So that's already a contradiction, because the philosophy is it's all oneness. It's all one. So you already have two. Okay. So they have, okay. And then, okay.
They
So
don't
that,
like to speak about that part.
what's that?
They don't like to speak.
They don't like to
about
speak
that
of, and as far as their response, that is, we've not heard a good response, So now, of course, in the modern times, you go to whatever, the New Age center, the yoga studio. There's not much philosophy there in my experience. I mean, if there, it's just not. It's just not. And then, as far as the arguments they make, yeah, we have Srila Prabhupada representing Jiva Goswami, the Sandarbhas, just smashing all the arguments. But that's an essential argument that is just, it's over. And even experientially, this idea of I am the absolute controller, I am the Ishvara, we don't experience that. I mean, the comic possibilities are endless, right? Like, okay, the comic possibilities are endless, and that's always fun. That's always fun. But the idea, it's like, okay, I am it's because the universe exists because of me. Okay, let's take 30 seconds and see how well we do it controlling our mind. Okay, ready, go. No, let's do it 3 seconds. Okay, I'm like severely challenged, really, to control my mind for like 20 seconds. But I am the all-powerful, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent personality. Is like, okay, so like experience. Now, what they say to that, I mean, I don't want to generalize because they have sophisticated word jugglery. As Narayan beautifully pointed out in his class a week ago, a few days ago, the leader of the actual philosophers, and again, modern day, especially in the West, there's not much philosophy. But the leader is Shankaracharya, and he did what he did for a purpose as a partial representation of Shiva. But ultimately, he fully accepted. Narayana Provyata, that yes, Bhagavan, Narayan is transcendental. There is transcendental form. He wrote the Govindastakam, beautiful bhajan about the form, the pastimes of Krishna. So anyhow, what they'll say is, okay, experientially, because we're in Maya, we don't experience ourselves as God. Okay, and it's because, well, we don't, unless like someone's under the influence of a lot of hallucinogen. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so but then okay, so the Vaishnav, okay, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, Vyasadeva, they go, no, that it's not just an experiential experience, it's ontologically true that there's a distinction between the jiva and the ishvar. It's ontologically true. And so these Advaitavad in recent classes, we've just discussions, we've discussed the psychology of why that's attractive. I mean, that's pretty attractive. Just take a course in meditation and realize I'm God. How could I have forgotten? Oh my God. And then, oh my God. So, and then like, okay, and then like yesterday in the presentation Malini gave, she described, some just so sweet pastimes, Mother Yashoda and Krishna, Lord Brahma Vimohan Lila. So this Advaitavad, the idea of impersonalism as the be all and end all, then it denies Krishna's. So we can see it's philosophical, and we want to be able to go there rigorously and powerfully and subtly. And at the same time, for a devotee, for like Srila Prabhupada, for Ramanujacharya, they're saying that the supreme, they're saying, and Prabhupada goes there here. We can, this is just such amazing philosophy. Wait, no one, nothing compares, I mean, in my experience. And also we can feel the Acharya's emotions, because they're saying this. They're saying that when Ishvara, they're saying that Krishna's appearance is Maya. Krishna's form is Maya. Maybe it's Maya more in a sattvic way, whereas our Maya is more tamas and rajas. But Krishna's form, Nrsimhadeva's form, it's Maya. It's actually illusion. It's actually Krishna's flute playing and Krishna's pastimes with Mother Yashoda. They're saying that's illusion. That's illusion. It's Maya. So that personally tears at the heart of a true devotee. Okay, and so there's emotion behind this supremely rational, trans-rational philosophy. And so, yes. So Prabhupada's emphasizing here that through devotion, that the more we give ourselves, our heart, our soul, our senses, our mind to this transcendental process, then the more we awaken to understand the distinction between the jiva and prakriti, and between the jiva and Ishvara. Jivara Srupahoy Krishna Nichidas Krishnara Tatasta Shakti Beta Prakash. That we're not matter, and neither are we Ishvara, neither are we God. We're spirit, soul, and we're eternal servants of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And the more that we hear Bhagavatam, chant Hare Krishna, especially because the chanting is available all the time. The more that we immerse ourselves in transcendental environment with all our senses, the sense of smell, smelling the incense, smelling the prasad, tasting prasad, engaging in devotional service, hearing Bhagavatam, then the more we have that realization of these distinctions. Knowledge is power, and power means, intelligence means to make distinctions between spirit and matter, and spirit and supreme spirit. And then abhideya, to act according to that realization, to act in devotional service then we experience that higher taste, we experience the results, that transformation of heart. Nasta praise for Bhadra Shunicham Bhagavata Sevi Bhagavati Tamashloki Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. And then we become a touchstone for transformation, which means when we're going outside of, let's say, that protective devotional energy, as Lord Brahma says, when sheltered under undisturbed conditions of the senses, when we're going outside, we're giving Krishna consciousness. I mean, let's say, okay, like this has been a theme in recent classes, including yesterday. Everything is Krishna, and Maya is Krishna's energy that's especially designed to make us forget that everything is Krishna. So like, okay, let's say if as part of our service, we read a book that's not directly written by someone whose goal was to bring us to bhakti yoga. We go on the internet and search some articles. And if it's our service and we're protected because it's our service, then we receive that, absorb it, and process it in a way that's actually enlivening for our self-realization and our Krishna consciousness. And if we go there for just to gratify our mind, material ego, or senses, then we're quickly on the slippery slope within one moment. So the process, the opportunity, is to be and to become so strong in our self-realization, Krishna consciousness, that no matter where we go, whatever we do, we're not absorbing the Maya energy. We're transforming matter into spirit. And then whether we're talking to someone or someone just sees us, we're a touchstone for transformation. We used that example fairly recently. But you would hear like descriptions of Prabhupada, just like people would see him drink some water from a cup, and just that they would be completely transformed. Right? It's a different quality of activity. Mainly we talk about Prabhupada's vibration. So we can aspire towards that. We can aspire to that. When we say everything's complete and perfect, we emphasize this a lot. Om Purnam Purnamina Purnat Purnam Udachite Purnashe Purnamade Purnam Eva Vashishite. So everything's complete and perfect. Everything. So I mean, to simplify it means that whatever we see in the universe, whatever we see, including and especially things that so much don't seem complete, perfect, they don't seem good, they don't seem beautiful, they don't seem true, and they seem corrupt, they seem brutal, whether it's in my life or what I'm witnessing in the world. Right, so essentially it means it's a complete and perfect opportunity to realize who I am as a jiva and to deepen my dedication to serve Krishna through his pure devotee with, if not love and devotion, because love and devotion, that's a pretty high stage, but at least with commitment, with dedication. Everything is a complete and perfect arrangement, including the cheating, the limitations, the mistakes, the disturbances from mind, body, other people, natural disturbances, birth, death, old age, disease. Essentially we can say, look, Krishna has basically a two-part plan to inspire us to move towards perfection. Basically a two-part plan.
Patrick, oh.
It's basically a two-part plan. And so one part is the fulfillment and the nectar of Krishna consciousness. Reading Bhagavatam, even someone's philosophically inclined. I mean, just this purport we read today. where do we find anything that can begin to compare to it? Chanting, prasadam, dancing in ecstasy, Krishna consciousness, and two, let's call it, to use a politically incorrect term, the punishment of Maya, the suffering that comes when we forget who we are as servants of Krishna. So then that suffering, that misery, that disturbance, that's meant, there's never force, but it's meant to like, wake up. This isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just in this nightmare dream life. So whether it's through the suffering and disturbance of Maya, or through the nectarian taste of engaging in devotional service, Krishna consciousness, then that's Krishna's not forcing, but that's Krishna's arrangement. That's Krishna's plan for us to awaken and come to Him and really live and serve our own bliss and fulfillment. So, I mean, one more point here, and then we'll open the script. So towards the end, Prabhupada says, the dry speculators, however, because of their following the principles of austerity and penance, can have knowledge of the impersonal features of the Lord to some extent, but there is no chance of their understanding His ultimate form as Govinda, because only the Amalatmanas, or the completely sinless persons, can accept pure devotional service to the Lord, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.28. The Advaitavadis, Mayavadis, different forms who deny the personality of Godhead, or say personality of Godhead is Maya, like that, which again, it's very offensive for a devotee. It hurts the heart. The Krishna's pastimes, Lord Ramachandra, Lord Nrsimha, oh, that's all Maya. That's very painful for a devotee. It's not just some abstract philosophy. The devotee is ready to use the instrument, the tool of rationality and logic to defeat such misconceptions. And also it's very painful to the heart. But so the non-personalists, I mean, there is the endeavor to realize that we're not matter, we're spirit, and that's very wonderful. Right? That's very wonderful. And to get that's real knowledge of who we are, spirit, soul, not matter. And then further knowledge, more than that, knowledge of who we are in relation to the supreme spirit soul. And so Prabhupada's emphasizing that it requires austerity in order to get the knowledge. We'll see this term a lot in the Shastra. Jnana Vairagya. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janaya Yashu Vairagyam Jnana Vairagyam Jnanam Chayada Hetukam. That by serving Krishna, one automatically gets knowledge and detachment. Tat Shradadana Munayo Gana Vairagya Yuktaya Pashantyatmani Chatmanam Bhakti Shuddha Guhitaya. The humble student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, Jnana Vairagya, realizes the absolute truth by performing bhakti yoga according to Vedic guidance. So Jnana and Vairagya, and so without the austerity, the penance, the detachment, then we're not going to get the realization of who we are, spirit souls, what to speak of the transcendental nature of Krishna. Because if we're not doing Vairagya, we're indulging the senses, which means we're dedicating our lives to increase the illusion that I am this body and I'll be happy by satisfying the body. And then that's essentially animal life. That's animal life. And so whether it's for the non-personal realization, Advaitavad realization, Bhakti realization, to get actual realization requires at least some Vairagya. The wise, enlightened person does not seek their fulfillment in the temporary contact of the senses with their sense objects, because such gratifications have a beginning and end, so they'll never be satisfied for the soul. And that's why a lot in the name of this kind of we're all gods sort of thing, hippie, new age. And I would say if we trace it historically, that that philosophical line is coming from India. It's coming from India, and the Shankarite line. But then it's become presented and applied without the vairagya, and then it just becomes kind of quite a farce. Because Prabhupada's making the point that the actual Advaitavadis, they're actually quite austere, and they need to be more austere than the Bhakti yogis, a lot more austere, because they don't have the higher taste that comes from Galuptamins and Kirtan and things like that. This is a very important point. Very important point. So, all right. So much more here, and I tried to cover a few points. Vishudam kevalam dhyanam pratyak samyagavastitam satyam punam anadyantam nirgunam nichamadvayam vishe vidanti munaya prashantat mendriyashaya yada tad eva satarkais hirodiyeta viplutam. The personality of Godhead is pure, being free from all contaminations of material tinges. He is the absolute truth and the embodiment of full and perfect knowledge. He is all-pervading, without beginning or end, and without rival. O Narada, O great sage, the great thinkers can know him when completely freed from all material hankerings and when sheltered under undisturbed conditions of the senses. Otherwise, by untenable arguments, all is distorted and the Lord disappears from our sight. Hare Krishna, thanks for your attention. I welcome at this time any comments or questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for class. Yeah, my question is around Maya. You're speaking about how, if Maya is, if God can be under illusion, then illusion is the absolute highest truth. For talking hierarchically, power or something. And if you could elaborate on how that relates to what Malini was speaking about yesterday about, Krishna's Mahamaya has conditioned souls in material reality, believing that they're disconnected from Krishna, and in that separation we suffer. And Yogamaya has the pure devotees and Krishna under the illusion that Krishna isn't necessarily the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that they can enjoy in an intimacy without being blocked by a reverence of oh my God, this is God. So how does Krishna choose to be influenced by Yogamaya while remaining higher than Yogamaya?
Well, I didn't get that last part. Why does Krishna choose to be influenced by Yogamaya? What was the last part?
Yeah, how is Krishna authentically convinced that he's a little boy that's afraid that his mother is chasing him? How can he be fully immersed in that Leela and feeling all those things without being subservient to Maya?
Okay, Hare Krishna. Well, that might be something Prabhupada would reply. Ask Krishna. Yes. When you go back to Godhead, ask Krishna what that experience is like. Because really, we're talking about Krishna's internal psychology. So it's very personal, and Krishna is always the control. He's always the controller of all his energies. Parasya Shakti Vividaya Vishriyate. He's always the controller of all his energies, and if he wants to play, just like an actor on a stage, he can choose to put himself so fully in the role, so that he is that role. So Krishna can do that, and this is like, yeah, that there's so the essence is the essence is different types of Maya, and what we're calling Mahamaya. It's that force of illusion. It's that force of illusion that really alienates further from realizing who we are. And then Yoga Maya, it's also a force of illusion. It's a spiritual force of illusion that deepens, that deepens one's realization of who they are as servant of Krishna. Right. So for Mother Yashoda, the cowherd boys, gopis, when they're under Yoga Maya, and it's deepening their affection for Krishna. Malini described yesterday about Brahma Vimohan Lila, how the parents of the cowherd boys, they were under so much illusion, and they didn't even recognize that their sons aren't their sons. It's actually Krishna, and it deepened their love for Krishna. Okay, right, and so that's that's a very intimate relationship with Krishna. So there's forgetfulness, but there's not forgetfulness. Like sometimes, like if we really read closely in the 10th canto in Krishna book, sometimes it is clear from the gopis or Mother Yashoda or the cowherd men, it is clear that they know who Krishna is. Sometimes that comes out. And so Krishna's fully absorbed in his pastimes, and he's also clear who he is. He's also clear who he is, but he's just like with Mother Yashoda when she came out of Yoga Maya. In one sense, we can say the only place there's not Maya is the Vaikuntha planets, like Dwarka, because in the Vaikuntha planets it's not Mahamaya. They're thinking they're the body. And neither is it like Goloka Vrindavan Yoga Maya. They see Narayan, Vishnu, for who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. And so Yashoda was getting that, Mother Yashoda was getting that that Vaikuntha realization of who Krishna really is. So then Krishna in co-creation with Mother Yashoda sent her back into Yoga Maya. So the realization of who Krishna is in there, in him, in the gopis, in the blades of grass in Goloka Vrindavan. It's there. It's there. Just like, okay, let's say an actor fully on the stage, and everyone's completely convinced. Like that. Somewhere in there, the actor knows who he is, but he's simultaneously fully absorbed in playing Macbeth or whoever he's playing.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
I have something. I want to comment on something also about the question from Narayan.
Yeah.
It seems that Krishna is always Krishna. That's how we, like when Krishna manifests his pastime on earth, that's one way to recognize Krishna as Krishna, is that from his babyhood, from his childhood, he always performed unbelievable, like inconceivable action. Like when he was on the head of Vasudeva, he kind of separated the Yamuna River, and he killed all those demons, and he manifests. So he is always God, and he always manifests himself as Krishna like that. And what he seems to be really going after in his desire is the relationship, the mellow that he wants to relish with his mother, or the mellow he wants to relish with his little boyfriends. And it's not that he forgets that he's God, or that it doesn't seem like that. It seems, my understanding of my reading is that like he is always powerful God, and he has desire to enjoy in a certain way some relationship, and that's really what he's after, to relish those relationships. Not so much that he's after forgetting that he's God to identify as a little boy.
Thank you, Melanie. Thanks for that.
And I have a question about the last point you made in your class about Vairagya.
Yeah.
Station. It seems to me that when we perform austerity and sacrifice, we come to a place of bliss. And that place of bliss is free of anxiety. You know, like I know when, even if I do simple, like austerity, like not eating, like if I fast for a few days, I can see I can see the trust, and I can see the freedom in that, so much freedom in performing austerities. And so I was thinking like Vaikuntha means a place of no more anxiety. And so I'm looking at that, how come like performing austerity, how come it doesn't bring that, since performing austerity leads to no more anxieties?
You're saying how come performing austerities doesn't bring one to Vaikuntha?
Yes, I'm not saying to have a relationship with Krishna, but it seems that performance of austerity leads one to feel a sense of freedom from anxiety.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah.
Freedom from any material anxiety. And so Vaikuntha, the definition of Vaikuntha is without anxiety. So that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that, Malini. Right. So, well, that's why we make the point, all humans are doing austerity. All humans are doing austerity. And we need to look at the motivation. Like Hiranyakashipu did incredible austerity. Most of you might be familiar, 7th canto. He did Hiranyaka, and he had very demoniac intentions to control and enjoy. So the austerity will always bring it'll bring a detachment, and then that'll bring a freedom, a bliss, and then it'll bring power. There's austerity is called tapa. It means heat, power, heat. And so Brahma, when he was meditating at the dawn of creation, he got 2 syllables, tapa, and engage in the heat of austerity. So that gives power. And then we can use that power to perform bhakti and go to Vaikuntha Goloka. But what's the motivation? What's the motivation behind the austerity? Because we can do austerity, and then with this power, I'll control the universe. With this power, I'll build a bigger business and make money, and then I can really enjoy the senses. So we can do austerity, and then we get power. We do. But if the heart is still impure, Abhishuddha Buddha, if the heart's impure, then we won't be inclined to serve Krishna with that increased power. Okay? And so like the typical progression as described. Well, the Bhagavatam starts, Janmadyasya, after Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Bhagavatam goes to Janmadyasya Yaton Vayaditirtas, Janmadyasya Yataha. That everything that exists in the effect must exist in the source. So just that first line of Bhagavatam really torpedoes the Advaitavad stance, right? Because that the Supreme has no variegatedness. Because so there's so much variety here, so there's variety in the Supreme. There's so much music here, must be flute playing there. Okay, so much form, so much personality, so much relationships. And so, okay, so the idea is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So the idea is do some austerity, be a pious person. Don't just indulge your senses. Okay, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Don't just indulge. So the idea, yeah, do some austerity, be religious, like that. But then the motivation there is kama. If I'm austere and religious and I don't just live a slovenly, decadent life, then my business will do well and I'll be prosperous. And then I can really enjoy kama, and I can really enjoy sense gratification. So austerity works in the way you say. Austerity works in the way you say. It gives that power, but then what do we do with it? Dharmasya yapavargasya nartutaya kalpate nartasya dharmikantasya kamalabhaya hismita. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be used for artha, material gain. And according to realized sages, one who gets material gain from performing the supreme occupational devotional service should never use it for sense gratification. So many people perform austerity, but what's the motivation for doing it? What's the motivation? And ultimately, for most, it's kama. It's to enjoy the senses at a higher level. If I do some austerity and get this college degree, I develop this business, work 18 hours a day, then I can enjoy more respect from people, and then I can enjoy women, and I can take beautiful vacations. So we want to look at what's the motivation. And of course, in the Vedic system, the idea is dharma, artha, kama, sense gratification, and then we get frustrated. Mogasha, moga karmano, moga jnana viseta. We feel frustrated. This sense gratification is just empty, and then we go for liberation. Then we go for liberation because we see this all frustration here. And if we have some contact with the pure devotee, we go for devotional liberation, which is actually enduring. If not, we do some temporary or artificial type of liberation. So I guess my central response is, yes, austerity brings power. And what's our motivation? What do we want to do with that power? Are we going to do something that'll bring us back into the modes, or something that'll go towards Vaikuntha?
I really appreciate your response, and I think the one that was the most empowering, like for my response in my head, was the example of Hiranyakashipu, because he came to a place of no anxiety, like no material anxiety. He had no material anxiety. He wasn't scared. He wasn't scared of the demigods anymore. He wasn't scared of anything material, and he was scared of Vishnu.
He was scared of Vishnu.
So he had anxiety, even so he had no material anxiety in the sense that he was not in anxiety about money or about power, about enemies. And he was still in anxiety because he was a devotee and he was scared of Vishnu. So yeah, that was a really good example.
Yes. Yeah, well, we mentioned kind of like New Age hippie philosophy. A lot of what that's about is kind of like going for the moksha, going for the liberation without the vairagya. And yeah, it's like, yeah, and then it just, it doesn't, that won't work. We won't get that blissful realization of who we are, spirit, soul, if we're just indulging our senses. We'll just continue in experience that's not much, if at all, above animal life, whatever our philosophy is. Any other comments or questions?
I was thinking also in what you just said now, is that in a modern Western kind of oneness movement, or people New Agey like that, is there is so much, the varyaga is there, like the austerity is there, However, usually it's there for establishing myself in one state of consciousness. So I will do austerity for a few days or maybe a longer thing, and then I get my high, because there is a high from austerity. But then after I go back to my life. And then, but I had that high, so that high kind of put me in some kind of philosophical state about the truth about the universe. And then little by little, I go back to sense gratification and the miseries that come with that. And then I go to the next high, next state of consciousness that gives me the illusion that I have made progress in spiritual life, but in fact it's just different high or of kind of the bliss of oneness that are achieved during the austerities themselves, but don't have like a continuation of stages of evolution.
Thanks for that, Malin. Yeah, it's called Bhoga Tyaga. Bhoga means a cycle of enjoyment, indulgence, and then renunciation. But Bhakti Yoga moves one to transcendence of Bhoga Tyaga. At the same time, I can say from personal experience, we can also use or misuse Bhakti Yoga to be in the same cycle, right? Oh, I'm going to chant rounds today. I'm going to get up early, and then we feel enlivened, or maybe even for a week or a month. And okay, and now we have more of an effulgence because we're not in this dark place of just sense gratification. And now we're more powerful. And now we can attract people more, and we can manipulate people more. So Bhakti Yoga is designed for transcendence to the Bhoga Tyaga cycle. At the same time, to the extent we still have anartas, we're impure, we can take the power that comes from Bhakti Yoga. We can take the power and try to use it for increased sense gratification. Some of you have heard me told my Bhakti Yonatan story from Israel when I was directing the Tel Aviv Center. This was maybe around 87. And we had this young fellow, maybe in his early 20s, and he was all down and out, very dark. He was a tall fellow, and he was really miserable. And he started coming to the programs, and then he actually joined. He moved in, and he would be with us at the Gordon Street Center. First was Frischman, then Gordon, and then sometimes at Renana out in the suburbs of Tel Aviv. And after about 2 weeks, he shaved up, and it was the whole thing, and he was chanting, come to Mangalarti every day, and he was effulgent, and he was joyful, and he was enthusiastic, and he was a shining person. He really was. 2 weeks of intensive Bhakti Yoga seminar. And then once we took him to Tel Aviv Center for our, there on Frischman, and we had a program. Lots of people came, and Bhakti Yonatan experienced something he had never experienced before. He experienced that young, pretty women were attracted to him. That never happened. It never happened. But now he was this effulgent personality, and he got it from Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga worked, and then within a few days, he was with one or a few of the young, pretty women, and we would see him sometimes. He would come around, and he didn't have bitter. He was just like, "Thank you, Bhakti Yoga. This is a wonderful process." And I don't think he continued with sadhana like that. But I'm just using it as an example. And I mean, it's so true in my life. I don't need to point 40 years ago to 35 years ago to Bhakti Yonatan, that I do some austerity. I'll completely stay away from internet for a few days. And I'll get up early. I'll do extra reading of Prabhupada's books, and I am in Vaikuntha. I'm feeling blissful. And the next day, okay, well, I want to keep in touch with the world, just 10 minutes. But then, it doesn't matter. I'm doing great. And then 10 minutes becomes half an hour. I use the power to indulge in sense gratification, and I'm in the pit. So we do austerity, whether it's bhakti austerities or some other type of austerity. We get power. What's our motivation? What are we doing with the power? Dr. George.
Hey Krishna, David. I have a question regarding austerity in terms of offering austerity. So often before I do, if I have some kind of awareness, like before I'm going to work or I'm going to be engaging in some kind of activity, I'll think of, like I know like my internal monologue goes something like, oh Krishna, or oh my dear Krishna, please engage me in your service. Sometimes I'll swap out Krishna for all attractive or source of all bliss, like please engage me in your service. Trying to kind of like prep myself mentally not to be attached to the result, because so much of what I do in my work is like based on result. And then I'll say, I'll say the prayer to offer respects or obeisance to Prabhupada. I'll say Namam Vishnupadaya, and I'm offering respectful praises to Prabhupada. And so yesterday or the day before, it occurred to me, should I be offering my austerity, like my work austerity, to Prabhupada? Or should I be offering it to Krishna? And sometimes I say, please Prabhupada, accept this service for Krishna. Like, I guess, because like we're always going to do austerity, right? So I'm trying to have awareness of where that austerity is going. And I'm wondering, like, you know, because having devotional love, pure devotional love of God and all that is, I feel like it's so far away, like you were saying, like, especially for me, that feels true on a personal level. To me, be able to like just like call out to Krishna and like, I don't know. So do I guess I'm wondering what does Prabhupada recommend maybe as far as um, putting our intention in, or say having clear intention to do austerity? Is it to ask Prabhupada and then Lord Chaitanya, and then because I know the prayers that we offer for Shadam, I feel like they're like that kind of, you offer it to Prabhupada and then Lord Chaitanya and then Krishna. So I'm wondering if that applies for other endeavors, other things that we do that could be qualified as austerity, such as our work service.
Thank you, Dr. George. I appreciate your reflections and question. Well, okay. I mean, I get my first response is, you know, you can't go wrong in any of those directions. If in offering the austerity of your work or in anything, you're remembering Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada, Lord Nrsingadev. You're putting your mind in transcendence, and that's transcendentally absolutely good. And so I wouldn't be in anxiety. Okay, now, and as far as further distinctions, yeah, so wherever you go with that, Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Prabhupada, you're nicely spiritually situated. You're purifying your mind. Okay, and then simultaneously, we want to remember that we go to Krishna through Srila Prabhupada. And that doesn't mean we don't have a direct relationship with Krishna. When we're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we're often praying, my dear Lord Krishna, please engage me in your service. Hare, that's Radharani. So we have a direct relationship with Krishna, with Radharani. And our direct, it seems contradictory, but it's not. Our direct relationship is through our current link to the Parampara, Srila Prabhupada. So we want to have that there, that we go through Srila Prabhupada, just like the Prasadam process, the Prasadam offering process. We go through Srila Prabhupada. At the same time, that doesn't mean it's wrong to directly say, my dear Lord Krishna, please accept this austerity that I'm doing today at this dental school. Or we directly remembering Lord Chaitanya, Sri Krishna, and simultaneously being conscious that we go to them through Srila Prabhupada. And sometimes, if not often, we want to be directly, my dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept this offering. Please give me your grace and blessings to be Krishna conscious today in some way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel encouraged. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Bhakti George. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Hey, Nalini Jonah. Hare Krishna.
Yay.
Hare Krishna.